Hi, welcome to Cable Plus Property, your one-stop show and online educative platform for all issues related to land and landed properties. My name is Oiza, and you're sure already that this is where we provide you every information, first-hand information to issues related to building construction, documentation, registration, and obtaining your planning permit. You will agree with me that one of the basic necessities of life, apart from food and clothing, is housing. But then, what is housing in the real sense of it? Is housing the same as shelter? Well, I have with me in the studios today Mr. Toye Eniola, who is the Executive Secretary of the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria. He will be dissecting this topic and telling us all we need to know about housing. Come with me. Mr. Toye Eniola is a trained mass communication and public relations graduate who veered into property and real estate development after a brief stint in freelance journalism. He started his real estate career with Urbanelia Consultants, an architectural firm, in 1991, from where he proceeded to the defunct Amicable Bank of Nigeria in 1993 as Marketing and Corporate Affairs Officer. After the collapse of the bank, he joined the Association of Housing Corporations of Nigeria as Public Relations Officer in 1998. The appointment provided him opportunity to work closely with late Chief Samuel Fadaunsi and late SPO Fortune Ebie, and had since been so passionate about provision of affordable housing to vulnerable Nigerians that really need housing. He was the producer and presenter of Own a Home, a weekly property enlightenment program that ran on Lagos Television LTV8 from January 2008 to May 2009. He is an ordained minister of God with Living Faith Church Worldwide, aka Winners Chapel. He's an author with great passion for the advancement of the kingdom of God, with a call to minister peace and deliverance to every troubled home and rescue people from every satanic marital captivity through the Word of God. He's a property and real estate consultant, a film and TV producer, and a scriptwriter. He's currently the Executive Secretary of the Association of Housing Corporations of Nigeria. Join with me as I speak with Mr. Toye Eniola. Okay, so let's get into our discussion. Is having a shelter over one's head housing? Is it the same as housing? And if not, our viewers would like to know what housing in the real sense of it is and why it is necessary or essential for human health.
Well, people use housing and shelter simultaneously, but we have a unique difference between the two terms. Shelter, as it were, is having a roof over your head, why housing goes beyond having a roof, but include having the functionalities of all the necessary infrastructures that makes life and home habitable. In other words, when you talk about housing, you're talking about a home that not only provide you a shelter over your or a roof over your head, but also have facilities that provide for all the things that makes life enjoyable. You have good toilet, you have functionalities of infrastructures, waters, and the rest that are needed in a home. So that is what you are talking about, housing. So if you don't have that, well, it's just a mere shelter. But when you have all those functionalities, then you have a housing.
When was the Association of National Housing Corporation established?
Well, the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria was established in 1964 by the defunct three regional governments and the Lagos Executive Development Board, LEDB. That was in 1964, and the organization has been existing since then.
Can you tell us what the purpose of the association is? I mean, when was it established at the time in 19?
Yeah, well, the main objective of establishing the Association of Housing Corporation was to provide a policy guide, assist governments, providing information and advice, government on their housing policies that will make housing available and affordable for the masses. So our main objective here is to ensure availability of affordable housing for the people. And that is what we've been doing over the years. And we do this by establishing workshop, enlightenment programs, seminars, conferences, and ensure that we support every policy that will help to make housing available and affordable for the masses.
So how can the people watching this program, how can they benefit from the association?
Well, directly we affect government policy that will make housing available, which is a plus for them. Incidentally, at the initial stage of the establishment of this corporation, government were absolute and resolute with provision of housing for the people. And if you look at most of the state capitals, we see houses developed by the State Housing Corporation. By the way, the association is an umbrella body for all the state housing corporations in all the states of the Federation, as well as the Federal Housing Agency. And we also have some private developers, some mortgage organizations as members of the associations. And in each of the states of the Federation, we have a housing corporation, like in Lagos State. We have Lagos State Development and Property Corporation. In Ekiti State, we have Ekiti State Housing Corporation. In Ogun State, we have Ogun State Housing Corporation. We also have Ogun State Property and Investment Corporation, OPIC. In the north, we have Kano State Housing Corporations. We have Plateau State Investment and Property Company Limited. We have so many of them in all the states of the Federation. They have a housing corporation or housing agency that are established by statutory functions of the government. They were established by the government as a government housing agencies or parastatal, solely to provide housing for the people.
In what area can the association assist in making housing affordable to the masses? Or in what areas has the association been assisting?
Well, our members have been doing this, providing housing estates in all the states of the Federation. If you look at Lagos, for instance, we have so many estates developed by LSDPC, even from the 70s. Most of the major estates are housing a lot of thousands, or if not millions of people today. We have housing estate developed by LSDPC in Pori, we have in Ikpaja, we have in Surulere, we have in Ikorodu. Those estates were located all over the state. The same thing happens in all other states. In Ibadan, we have Bodija Estate. In Ogun State, we have Ibara Housing Estate. We even have one of the estates in Ota, developed by Ogun State Housing Corporations. So all of our members all across the country develop housing estates principally for the low and medium income people. So they have been doing this all over the years, and they are still in the business of doing that. So all our aims to provide a housing for the people who need houses and could not afford to buy directly.
Would you really say these houses are affordable? Ibara Housing Estate, for example, I don't think is a place someone who is earning 50,000 naira or below can afford.
Well, you don't have any years of Ibara Estate, for instance, has been developed. So many years, and as at the time it was developed, it was affordable. Don't forget that property appreciates. And the same way the properties are appreciating is the same way the economic factor is also increasing. The cost of building is going on high. As at the time Ibarra Estate was developed, maybe a bag of cement was selling for 25 naira, or maybe in the range of 100 naira. But today, a bag of rice is going for over 4,000 naira. So, and of course, that will reflect in the cost of construction, which will also affect the cost of sales of those houses. Yes, it is true that most of the houses that are being produced today are not affordable, but they are, the forces of the functionality of the economy. So, well, we don't have a control of that. Government has a total control of the economy.
Okay, so are real estate developers and the Association of Real Estate Developers, are they under the umbrella of the Association of National Housing Corporation?
No. Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria is a body of private developers that are into provisions of houses, while the association is an umbrella of mostly government housing agencies. Though we have some private developers among us. Those are the tested developers that have produced nothing less than 100 units of houses that were admitted as members of the association. But the REDN is not under us. They operate as a separate body, while the Association of Housing Corporation operates also as a separate body, more or less a public sector body.
So the monitoring of the activities are not within...
We don't monitor the activities. We don't have anything to do with the activities. But we are in the same business. We relate together.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you relate?
We relate. We organize functions together, and we offer advices. We influence policies that we make housing affordable generally for the people. They are also meant to provide houses for the people, and that is what we do here as well. So we are all in the same business, and we, most often collaborate to ensure that people that need houses are catered for in the society.
Thank you for that, sir. I would like you to explain these terminologies for the sake of someone watching this video. And the first one is housing need.
When you talk about housing need, you are talking about the general require housing in the society. We're talking about, the people that require to be housed. So whether vis-a-vis the population of the society. So that's what you're talking about housing need, whether it is necessary. If you go to some villages in Nigeria today, we have so many houses that are empty, that don't even have people to live in there. So in such a place, you can't say that they have a housing need because virtually everybody there have roofs over their head. So when you talk about housing need, it is when we have inadequate housing for the people that require them. So then you now talk about housing need.
So housing demand and housing supply.
When you talk about housing demand, you are talking about the people who want house, the people who are demanding, as the name suggests, who require house over their roof and their family at a time. And when you talk about housing supply, because I know you are going to ask that question,
yes,
you are talking about the supply side, the people who provide those houses that are needed by the people. So it's a function of law of supply and demand. The supply side is the people who provide the houses, while the demand are the people who need those houses that are supplied in the market.
So can we then conclude to say that when the housing demand is higher than housing supply, then housing need has been created?
Well, when the demand is higher than the supply, well, it depends. Housing supply ought to be a function of housing demand. In other words, people want houses, and the supplies are to provide for them. Housing demand is high because a lot of people want to become homeowners. I'm not sure you have one yet, and you want to have one. We are growing. Every passing day, a new baby is born. And each of these babies, when they grow, they will definitely need a roof over their head. And when they grow up, they need to get married. Perhaps you live with your parents for now. One day you're going to get married. When you get married, you're going to have a new family of your own. And you can't continue to live with your family. Then a need and the demand will arise. So the supply will also have to follow. Also, but the challenge we are having now is that we have supplies, people need, but their needs cannot meet up with the available supplies that are there. So it creates a conflict between the need and the demand.
So how do we resolve that situation? Because you agree with me that what is the essence of houses being supplied if those who are demanding for them cannot afford them?
Well, this is where government comes in. In a developed country, we have what we call social housing. And in our national housing policy, there was a provision for social housing. But unfortunately, our government are not deeply involved in social housing. When you talk about social housing, you are talking about houses that government have to supplement, have to, put part of the money to subsidize, the cost of those housing. For instance, maybe the cost of house is 5 million, and government can come up to say, okay, we want to subsidize it with about 2 million, so that it will be affordable for the low-income people. But we don't have such things here. The truth is that everybody cannot become a homeowner. There are some that has to rent homes. There must be a rental, yes. So, and even renting a home now is also becoming a major problem for majority of Nigerians because of the cost.
Especially in
so, and that is where social housing needs to come into place, where government has to play a role to subsidize, to ensure that none of its citizens, live without shelter or over their roof. But our government is lacking behind. They are not doing the responsibility. We have the provision in the national housing policy, but it is not being implemented practically. So we're just praying to God that we will have a government that will be passionate about the people. Our governments today are not very passionate about the people. They don't care about the people. In developed country, no government of such country wants to see their citizens sleeping under the bridge without roof on their head. Even if they don't have a modern house, they can provide a shelter for them. But in this country, if you don't have a roof over your head, you're on your own. Anywhere you see, you sleep. So, and that is not good enough, and that is why we are, as an association, we appeal to government to do what they can do to at least provide shelter for the people that actually need it. And that is why we have been clamoring for the implementation of social housing in Nigeria, and also rental housing, so that they can solve the problem of those who cannot afford a lump sum of money to buy homes.
Thank you for that explanatory answer, sir. So in Lagos, for example, there's serious housing deficit, especially you cannot, I categorically say that in Lagos now, the least amount to get a room self is 250,000 naira annually. And that is, I'm not talking about the other extra money you have to pay, for example, for commission, for agreements. So by the time you do the calculation, it's running to 500,000 naira or more. So apart from the Governor Jakonde low-cost housing program, that was provided by the government, can you trace for us another housing program that the government has or will provide to benefit average income earners, especially, let's take Lagos as a case study, considering how costly it has become to get a roof over your head?
Well, the economy all over the world is becoming so difficult to manage. The COVID, the outbreak of COVID did not help matters, and most countries are struggling to balance their economy. This is also to say that some governments are not trying their best. But the truth of the matter is resources are scarce. Government resources are scarce. In Nigeria, for instance, there are so many things competing with what government is making. And it's becoming very difficult for government to be able to face housing. And that is why most governments are not getting involved in housing provision. But I believe it can be done. What we need is a willpower from government that is passionate about its people. If there is will, you can get things done. I know Lagos State is trying. In Lagos, for instance, we have so many bodies that are involved in provision of housing. The Ministry of Housing is also building. And we have what we call Lagos homes, which are affordable, though people are saying they are not affordable because they are going in the range of 25 million, which majority, to buy, which a majority of people cannot afford. For that building, most of the funding that are using for all this construction are sourced from the bank at high interest rate. And that is why you can't divulge this issue of cost from the economy. So what you see happening in the housing sector is a function of the economy. Government must wake up to its responsibility. Government must be ready to write off some of the costing of these houses. For instance, infrastructure alone takes about 30% of a house. So if government can write off about 30% of the infrastructure, of course, the cost will come down and it will be affordable for the people. But like I said, the cost of housing now is a function of the economy. I'm sure the pen that you're using to write, maybe it was 10 kobo before, and now it's like 100 naira. And there's nobody who wants to engage in any business and run at a loss. So people have to reflect the cost of the materials in the construction. So if we don't address the issue of the economy, it may be difficult for us to address the issue of the cost of houses. So getting affordable housing is a task. It is possible to be done, but there are a lot of things that government needs to do to get this in place. Like tax rebates, some of those building materials, if government can be involved in, bringing down the cost, maybe given incentives to some of the buyers so that they can produce an mass for the people to build for the low income group, then we'll be good to go. Although the situation is not applicable to Nigeria alone. If you go to development country as well, the cost of housings are going up. It is a global thing, and there's nothing anyone can do about it, because what affects one affects all. For instance, the war that is going on in Russia and Ukraine is having a negative effect in our economy today. because some of those things that those two countries are supposed to provide for the world have been truncated by the war, and it drives up the cost, which affects the global economy generally.
Okay, thank you very much for that very interesting answer, sir. The belief of the people in the area of housing provisions by the government is to generate revenue and not to solve the problem of housing needs, which is like the major problem we've been talking about so far. What is your thought on this?
Well, anybody that is engaging in any business wants to make profit. Nobody wants to be a Father Christmas. And it's just that we need to prioritize what we do. If government have a sense of responsibility that they owes some duty to the citizen, it is the responsibility of government to make provision for social housing, like I've explained earlier. But if there is no provision, it will be to generate. In the past, housing corporations are funded by government. In every yearly budget, there used to be a budget that is set aside for provision of houses. But the resources available now to government is not even enough to take care of their needs. And so, housing is one of the areas that is facing a serious setback. It's not only housing that is facing setback, education is also facing setback. And that was why you find out that ASU was on strike since February, and this is October, they just called off the strike. Why? Because the government don't have that money. There are so many leakages in government purses that needs to be blocked. There are so many corruption that are going on in government. And the kind of government that we run is so expensive that the people have to take the issue of politics first before all other things that affect the generality of the people. And that's why we're having that problem. Except we have a government that is people conscious, that are passionate about the welfare of the people. We are not likely going to have any change in what is obtainable right now. The question we should ask ourselves is that the people of old, in the days of Jakonde, how did they do it that they were able to achieve those milestones that they achieved that time? Because they have the welfare of the people at heart. Most of our politicians today, the people in government, are not only corrupt, they are self-centered. They are only interested in their pocket. They are interested in their people. They are not interested in the people they govern. And so they are not going there to serve the people. They are going there to serve their pocket. And that's why we're having all this problem we're having.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back on the show.
Cable Plus Property, the hub of professionals in the built environment and the #1 online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed property. At Cable Plus Property, our aim is to ensure that all Nigerians and non-Nigerians have at the tip of your fingers, free of charge, all information on landed matters. We provide you with all information you need to know about land procurement, land documentation and development, planning permit procurement, building construction, and so on. Join us today for free by subscribing to our YouTube channel, like and follow us on our social media platforms, and check us on our website www.cableplusproperty.com. Together, we shall make our environment better. Spend and build right.
Welcome back. It's still the Cable Plus Property Show, and I have with me in the studio Mr. Toye Eniola, who is the Executive Secretary of the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria. What is National Housing Fund? Why was it created? Who are the beneficiaries? And who among the lower class of people have benefited from it so far? And why are the funds difficult to access?
Well, National Housing Fund is a creation of the National Housing Policy, and it is basically administered by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. It is a statutory creation which is meant to deduct about 2.5% of the basic salary from all workers in the country that earns more than 3,000 naira per annum when the policy was initiated. And so it's a compulsory deduction from every worker in Nigeria. And it's still there. But the challenge we have, that fund, when it is deducted, every employer are meant to remit what was deducted back to the federal government, to Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, to create a pool of fund that is supposed to be lent out as a mortgage to people who require mortgage to own their homes. And so government have been deducting this money from every employee, and employer were to remit. But we have challenges with that fund. Many people were not part of that, one. And most employers that were deducting the money from employee were not remitting to Federal Mortgage Bank. So this created a little gap that the fund was not enough to service the generality of the people. The idea of setting up the fund is to create a pool that when they deduct from here and there, the bank will have enough fund to give out to people on a long time to own their homes. So the fund is functional, but unfortunately, most of the people that are contributing to this fund organize public and some private sectors. A lot of people, more than 70% of private companies are not contributing to this fund, and it's supposed to be a compulsory contribution. So you now begin to ask, why are they not contributing? So what is affecting the fund is actually Nigerian factor. And what is Nigerian factor? We do things in our own way, not in the normal way. We do things in the wrong way, and we think it's the right thing, and we call it Nigerian factor, which is abnormal situations that is turned to normal. And so we need a new orientation for this fund. The fund is actually working. People believe that it's not working. It's because people are not well educated about it. People are accessing the fund, but most of us are ignorant. We have this stereotype that the fund is not working. And because of that, people generally believe it is not working. But there are so many people who are accessing the fund and who are using the fund to build houses. And the fund, Federal Mortgage Bank now has so many options that people can leverage on. Apart from the mortgage loan, they also have what they call renovation loan. That when you have a house, you have a property, it's due for renovation, you can apply for that loan and you'll be given. But the question is, how many people have gone to apply? Of course, the Nigerian factor is still there. The human factor is still there. But the question is that how many people are actually educated and enlightened enough that such things are available.
So are you saying, sir, that unlike the general belief that the funds it's difficult to access, it's very easy to access?
Well, if you meet all the requirements, you will get the fund. But Nigerians like shortcuts to every issues. There are conditions to be met. A majority of the people are not ready and patient to meet those conditions. And you know, if you go to the bank generally, for instance, if you go to any bank, you want a loan, you know you have to, they will ask you to go and bring this, bring that. And majority of us are not patient enough to bring all those things. And so because they have, before they issue you any loan, they have to assess so many factors, the risk factor involved, to be sure that that money is coming back. Because the money they want to give to you as a loan is not their money. It's public fund. The same thing with the NHF. The money they are giving you, though your money is there, it's not only your money. There are some other people who are contributing. And so if you don't meet all the requirements and the conditions that are involved, there's no way you can get it. For instance, one of the conditions is that whatever property that you are buying must have a title document. And we discovered that in Nigeria, most of the property we have are without title. And they have to confirm that that title is genuine. So none of this takes time to do the confirmation. And that's why people have this stereotype that the fund does not work. I know so many people who have benefited, ordinary people like you and I, who applied and they are living in their home now.
Wow.
Through that fund. It is real, the fund is real, it's there. All you need is a little patience. It may not happen within 1 month, it may not happen within 2 weeks, but if you are patient, if you apply it and if you qualify, you will beat it. In those days, one of the conditions is that you must have a counterpart funding. You must have your own part. But now there is a shift in that policy that if you are applying for a loan that is less than 5 million and below, you don't need equity contribution. And in the past, when you're applying for 5 million and above, the maximum you can get from that loan is 50 million. So from 5 million to that 50 million, it used to be 15% contribution, but now it has been reduced, I think, to 10% contribution. So if you don't have your contribution, and that's where majority of people are having it, and to make it easier for the low-income group, so government has changed that policy and said if you require 5 million and below, you don't need any equity contribution, but what you did is to be sure that you are registered with the fund, you have a running employment history, you are contributing, you must have contributed for at least 6 months, and not only that, all your contribution must have been remitted by your employer to the bank before you can qualify. So if you are in employment and that money has been deducted from your salary, if you want to apply for that fund, the first thing you need to do is to ask your employer if they have been remitting, and if they have not, you have to ensure that they remit that money to FMBN before you can qualify. It's a simple analogy. You can't reap from where you don't sow. If you are contributing, the money is not in there. It's not in their kitty. How do you expect them to come and give you out of it where you are not contributing? That's just the issue. That is difficult. Well, it's not difficult if you meet all the requirements. But what you need, when you qualified, you meet all the requirements. It may take some time. That's and you. The challenges are the reason why majority of people think that the thing is not working is that you can't go there and knock on the FMBN door to collect as a person. You have to go through a mortgage bank who will have to do that on your behalf. In most cases, when people apply, they just left the thing with their PMI, the mortgage bank, and the mortgage bank will keep the thing there, and they won't follow it up. And once they don't follow it up, you will be waiting here in your room without knowing what is happening. So an individual also needs to follow up with their primary mortgage bank to ensure that their application has been submitted, because it's the PMI that will submit the application on your behalf. So these are some of the teaching problems, where the issues are coming from, where those delays are coming from.
Okay. So, sir, for those who have retired from service and have contributed while in service to the National Housing Fund, how can they have access to it?
Well, majority of Nigerians are not enlightened in this area. For the fact that you retired from service does not mean that you can't have access to the fund that you have contributed. Every kobo that you have contributed to National Housing Fund is refundable on retirement, even with interest. Federal government owing a responsibility to refund whatever you have contributed if you do not access any loan from them. But unfortunately, majority of retirees don't know this. And so all you need to do is that when you retired from the service, you apply through your organization. When you register for the National Housing Fund, they will give you a number. You can even write to them with that number, stating all your documentation to FMBN to request for your refund. And when you request it, will be treated and you'll be refunded with interest. But for you to get that refund, you must ensure that your employer is remitting the fund to the National Housing Fund. If they are not remitting, there's nothing to get. But as long as they are remitting whatever you have contributed and what other people have contributed, when you request for refund, you get it.
A very interesting question, sir. How many percent of the income is deducted for the National Housing Fund?
It's 2.5% of your basic salary.
2.5%.
Every month.
What is the difference between affordable housing and social housing? Social housing is something you've mentioned repeatedly since we started this conversation.
But like I mentioned, social housing is when government subsidize housing to make it affordable for the people. But when you are talking about affordable housing as it were, you are talking about a housing that is pocket friendly. And it's a difficult time to agree, because what is affordable to you might not be affordable to me. For instance, if your annual salary is 10 million and my own annual salary is 2 million, what will be affordable to you may not be affordable to me. Because out of your 10 million, you can say, okay, I can part with 4 million to buy a house of 3 million. But me that is earning 2 million per annum, I may find it difficult to even part with 500,000. So what that means is that the house that I have to look for has to be a house that is within my own limit. And that is why I said that term affordable is means different things to different people. It's a general term that is used for a pocket-friendly housing. So your income is what determines what will be affordable to you or what will be affordable to the other person.
Assuming that housing provisions by the government are affordable and, easily accessible for low-income earners especially. What impact do you think it will have on the local economy?
Housing generally has a great impact on us. If you don't have a roof over your head, it affects every facet of your life. You can't think right. You can't sleep well. You can't concentrate on work. If you see people around you who has a housing need, or maybe their landlord has ejected them and they're looking for a house, they don't have a place to stay, their concentration at work is affected. And so, housing is key to the generality of the people. And so if you want the best from the people, you want to resort, you want to maximize the potentials of worker, then provide them with a house. And this will have positive effects on the general economy. Generally. So housing is key to the
Even
progress.
to the existence of our economy.
Yeah.
In what area can the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria assist to reduce building collapse in Lagos State and in Nigeria generally? Or in what areas have you been assisting?
Building collapse is principally a function of two forces. First, negligence on the part of government and corruption on the part of the people. Negligence on the part of the government because government are not doing what they ought to do. Before any house is constructed, there's supposed to be building plan approval. There's supposed to be supervisions of those drawings. There's supposed to be an approval of all those drawings. And there's supposed to be a follow-up to ensure that when they go to site, the builders are building according to the approved plans. But what we see is that these supervisions are not there. The necessary tests that are supposed to be conducted, in most cases, they are not done. Why? Corruption. People can stay in their room and get a building approval and get the project going. All the necessary tests that are supposed to be conducted when the construction is ongoing, they are not done. That is on one aspect. The other aspect is that we have so many substandard building materials in the market. Yet we have a regulatory body that are supposed to check this, and they have failed. I had somebody speaking some time ago that he wanted to buy a 16 mm rod, and it was tagged as 16 mm, but what they have in there was 12 mm. Some people approved those products to be imported into this country. What happened? Not properly checked. Negligence on the part of government. Government is not doing what they ought to do. On the other part, the builder wants to maximize profits. They want to cut corners. And most of the houses that are developed now, they are developers. They will tell you they are out to make money. So they don't care about life, just interested in what goes into their pocket. And because majority of them felt that if they do that, their money can speak for them. When money exchanges hands, anything goes. For us as association, what are we doing? We can't enforce this law. We can only talk. We can only offer advice. And that we have been doing. We have been organizing seminars to enlighten people about the effects and the loss of properties and loss of lives. And that's the most we can do as a body, because we are not an enforcement agency. So it's now left for government to be proactive in its activities to ensure that lives and properties are secured.
All right. The 6th International Conference on Housing and Exhibition is coming up between the 1st and 3rd of November 2022. So our viewers would like to know what it is all about and what they stand to gain, as well as the expectation of the government. So I think we should take it one after the other. Firstly, what is the conference and exhibition about? Well,
the 6th International Conference on Housing and Exhibition, tag Housing Africa 2022, is a gathering of all the stakeholders in the housing sector to come up with pragmatic solutions to diverse problems confronting the housing sectors. You agree with me that the housing sector is dealt with diverse problems that require solutions, particularly housing deficit. So we have packaged this conference to bring the key stakeholders in the industry to come together to analyze issues affecting housing provisions, affordabilities, and housing deficits, with the aims of providing solutions that will help us to address these issues. So, like I said, our main purpose as an association is to affect and provide advice to governments on housing solutions, things that will bring progress to provision of housing, especially for especially affordable housing for the medium and low income group. And that is exactly what we are trying to achieve with this conference. The stakeholders are coming. The exhibition is part of it, and the purpose of the exhibition also is to bring all the building materials, bring them, to showcase them, so that people will have an idea what is in the market, if there are product launch, new products that are in the market that can be of help to the people who are building. So it's an opportunity for them to showcase all of this at 6th International Conference on Housing, tag Housing Africa 2022.
Okay, so what do people stand to gain from this?
A lot. We stand to gain a lot. One, we are looking to create solutions to problems available. It's an opportunity for stakeholders to interact, to meet, to have business prospects. We have some international people that are coming. We have financiers that are coming, that are looking to invest in this country. And they are looking at where they can invest their money. And so when we bring all of these people together, it's an opportunity for the people in the industry, in the sector, to interact, come together, rub minds and ideas together that can move the sector forward. And so the businessmen have a lot to gain, because it's a place where many people will crystallize so many businesses. People who are exhibiting, they're going to sell, they're going to make new contacts, they're going to interact with people that will open diverse business opportunity for them. So it's a marketplace for all the stakeholders in the sectors to come together, and move the sector forward.
Mm-hmm. So what is the expectation of the government?
The expectation is for government to learn one or two things from the people that we are gathering. For instance, we are bringing people from Kenya to come and share their experience on how they have been able to. Kenya, for instance, has a very buoyant housing development. How are they doing it? How do they merge their housing policies with the actual constructions, and how did they go? Rwanda is another place. Rwanda in the recent time has been in the news. The country is very small, but yet is doing mighty things, even in the housing sectors. We are bringing all of these people together to share ideas so that we can learn from what they are doing. They learn from some of our things to create a robust policy that will help to move the sector forward. So it's going to be a win-win for everybody, both for the government, for the private people, and for even the visitors that are coming to be part of this exhibition. And it's an event that no one must miss. Everybody is invited. We are calling on everybody to be part of this great event.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. As we round up, would like you to say something about the Cable Plus Property Media Group and give any piece of advice you can.
Well, you guys are doing so well. The vision is very powerful, which is to advise and educate the populace on what they need to know about houses, about land documentations. People don't value knowledge. Some value knowledge in this country, but they are not exposed. An Indian man said, he said, when you want to keep anything away from Nigerians, he said, put it in a paper, because he knows that most Nigerians will not read it. Majority of us are not ready to learn. And so doing this online is an opportunity to reach out to the people, to educate them. And I really want to commend your organization for this great initiative that you are doing. We're there to support you, and the people will learn a lot. And people are actually benefiting from the knowledge that you are sharing out there for the public. Good work.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. It's been an honor and a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was an interesting edition of the Cable Plus Property Show with Mr. Toye Eniola, the Executive Secretary of the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria. Of course, you've rightly heard all he's got to say about housing, the cost of housing, housing demand, housing supply, housing need in Lagos and generally in Nigeria. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe just below this video. It's free, you don't have to pay. My name is Oiza. Hang out and follow us on social media at Cable Plus Property on Instagram and Twitter. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.